Call this meeting to order, the Finance Committee meeting for Monday, March 21st, 2022. If we all could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would ask for someone to approve the agenda.
So I'll make that motion.
All right, it's been and seconded as well, so agenda has been approved. Are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing no changes, without objection, move on to approve the minutes from February 22nd, 2022. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I will make that motion to approve the Finance Committee minutes.
Mr. Rodman has seconded. Any objections to that? All right, with no objection, we will then move on to the citizens' comments. And looking for any citizens' comments of anyone in the audience or anyone online?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. So let's go ahead with no citizens' comment and jump right in then to number 7 on our agenda. And we can ask Mr. Dale Butts, our ACA, to come up and.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a few brief noteworthy items about the happenings in the Finance Division. Most of you, all of you hopefully, probably got an invitation to a meet and greet at BIV, building number 2, this coming Thursday, 24th. That's from 11 to 1 p.m. Part of the National and State Procurement Month, and so it'll give council members, elected officials, as well a chance to tour our offices, meet our staff, hear from department heads, ask any questions. Lunch will be provided on that day, so we hope you can make it out there. Tomorrow starts budget review meetings. All ACAs will be involved in that process this year, along with, of course, our budget director and other finance department personnel as we prep for the first budget workshop quickly approaching on April 7th. Human resources, they've been very busy keeping us all notified of certain job fairs, career day type activities that's going on. As a matter of fact, this past Wednesday, March 16th, representatives from HR, the Detention Center, and the Assessor's Office participated in a veterans job fair in Walterboro sponsored by SC Works. And then coming up Thursday of this week, we have 9 departments from the county who are planning on sending representatives to speak to students at Beaufort High School's Career Day. The Assessor's Office, Register of Deeds, EMS, Finance, the Detention Center, Parks and Rec, Public Works, Solid Waste and Recycling, and of course HR will be participating in Career Day at Beaufort High School. In light of the trend in the reduction of COVID-19 positive cases in the county, the current COVID leave program will not be extended and will sunset at the end of this month, end of March, and departments have been notified of that. HR staff is also working on the list of employees who will be compensated for working through the COVID-19 pandemic. Very painstaking process to ensure that the list is accurate and payments are made according to the plan. Of course, that is pending final approval of council. We have a new person on board in finance, and Valerie, would you stand, please, if you don't mind? If some of you will probably recognize Valerie Altoff. She's our new payroll specialist. She took over on February 22nd for Susan Simpson, who moved to a staffed accountant position. Valerie most recently was employed by One Blood, but you might also know her from her time with the Beaufort Regional Chamber of Commerce and MCCS. Valerie and her husband Jeff, who's also a local business owner, their son Blake, who's a middle school student at Riverview Charter School, have lived in Beaufort for over 12 years. She's a graduate of Radford University and held various accounting positions prior to owning her own business, which was a small cafe in Richmond, Virginia. she enjoys spending time on their boat or at home with friends and family. And a fun fact about Valerie, she is the daughter of retired Port Royal Town Councilman Joe Lee. So hope you will welcome Valerie, and if you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself, please do so. Lastly, and in conjunction with the payroll department, IT has completed a setup of a generic payroll department email address, so all inquiries directed to the payroll department email inquiries should go to payroll DEPT as payroll department, DEPT@bcgov.net. If you guys don't have any questions for me, that concludes my update.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Butts? I see none. Thank you, Dale. All right, let's move on then to our agenda items. And again, welcome, Ms. Altoff. Glad you're with us. But Mr. Hayes, you're up next.
Morning, Chairman, Councilman. How are y'all doing today? I want to beg y'all's pardon. We're going to kind of move stuff around as the way it flows in the handout versus kind of what we're going to be discussing in items 9 and 10. It kind of made a little bit more sense to me to kind of shuffle it around. It's all in the handout, but we'll be starting at item 8, page 18, the Solid Waste and Recycling Fund. That's right. This is our new enterprise fund that we established this year in 2022. Our revenues are currently tracking at 67.33% of budget. Our expenditures in this fund are substantially higher than budget because of a large encumbrance for our waste disposal fees of about $3.7 million. By the end of the year, it's all going to even out. If y'all don't know, when you issue a PO for the full amount for the year, it's encumbered but not spent. And by the end of the year, it'll be spent, but what we'll watch is expenses kind of stay the same since they're encumbered, and then the revenues will continue on their trend, and hopefully we'll end up right around budget on that. The next one, can you get to page 19, is the Stormwater Utility Fee. Currently, they're at 95.08% of their budget. The majority of their funds come from their stormwater utility fees, which go out on the tax bills. As you know, our taxes were due January 15th, and that's when the majority of them came in. So they're actually higher than they are. Their operating expenditures are at 38.05% of budgeted expenditures, which is good, but mainly this is in the purchase services, which is items that they're working on, projects that they're working on, and we might see that. But currently they have a positive net position, which is a good item. Let's go to the Hilton Head Island Airport, page 20. The Hilton Head Island Airport, the operating revenues are outperforming the budget, and we're seeing the revenues continue to increase year over year since 2018 due to the increased flights, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Their operating expenditures are below budget. They're probably looking better than they have in a while. Currently, the Hilton Head Island Airport has a healthy operating income. Y'all may look down and see that 8.3 in capital that is negative. And what that is from capital projects that they plan to receive 90 to 95% of back. So that number will change, but this is all kind of a work in progress coming together. But the Hilton Head Island Airport is looking better financially than they have in a while. We have the net position down at the bottom, kind of contemplating what they would have and what they owe the general fund. All right, let's go to the next one, page 21. This is the Beaufort Executive Airport. And the Beaufort Executive Airport, the revenues are, they're a little bit below budget, and their expenditures are a little bit above budget. They're maintaining. We're looking to management to shore everything up by the end of the year. They kind of are where they are right now. But that's everything for the enterprise funds. If y'all have any questions there, then I was going to move into the general fund revenues and expenditures and go from there, and that will kind of segue into 9, where Whitney and I will be presenting what we have going forward. So do y'all have any questions related to the enterprise fund?
No, very good.
Any questions? Anybody online that has any questions?
Where is the public defender? That's not in here.
Sir, you go to page 12
Why?
of the same item, but it's page 12. And so currently, our revenue is at 91.12% of projected budget, which is very well exceeding expectations. If you look at the property taxes line down in the table below the graphs, we've collected almost $100 million, almost $101 million in the current year. We still have 4 months of collections, and then we have a year-end accrual. Beaufort County is in a trend. We've had more transfers than we've ever had in the past, which means sales of properties. We're having a lot of new building going on in Beaufort County. You know, you may say, well, this looks like we're asking our citizens to pay more than they should, when it's kind of not really the case. They're kind of buying, and they're buying new properties, either built or from the market. That value is increasing, and our revenues are increasing too. I had a very interesting conversation with the treasurer, and she had some very interesting charts and graphs that really outline this, and we're planning on showing y'all her results on those on the meeting on the 4th of April. But we are, right now, the way the revenues are looking, we're projecting that they're going to be over budget. If you look at the next page, which is expenditures, the expenditures are somewhat tracking with where they should to date. They're at 63.58%, and year-to-date should be 66.6. They're down a little bit, but I ran some projections on the expenditures, and the expenditures look like they're going to be less than what we originally budgeted. And for the past 2 years, well, I've been here and I've done for 2 budgets, and y'all been asking us to try and keep expenses in check, keep our revenues moderate to conservative, and we have. And based on that and running the projections, administration feels like we're going to have another net operating positive net position at the end of the year of approximately anywhere from $8 to $11 million, which this will be we've had one in 2018, 19, and 19, 20, and 21. So this will be the 4th year in a row. And we have, this will segue into our next segment, which is kind of some ideas that we have on using the surpluses. So if you want to take it from here.
Sure.
Sorry, I got too much paper.
Good afternoon. So as we are in the middle of the budget cycle for fiscal 23, one of the items that we always look at in keeping our compensation structure competitive and current with market rates is we thought, okay, we had this study, those figures were done almost 2 years ago now, even though we just implemented it with this current budget year, those figures are about 2 years old. So by our survey, and in keeping with inflation, there were discussions with Mr. Greenway about doing a COLA next year. According to the U.S. Department of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we are experiencing inflation through this February to February 12-month cycle like we've never seen it before. Well, actually in over 40 years. The last time it was this high of an increase in a 12-month period was July of 1981. So I'm going to throw out a couple of statistics for you in support of why we were considering a COLA for next fiscal year. Overall, it rose 7.9% from February of 21 to February of 22. Food rose 7.9, energy 25.6. All other items not food or energy were 6.4%. But to drill down into some of that a little bit more, housing rose 4.7, and we know in Beaufort it was higher than that. This is nationwide. Clothing 6.6%, and vehicles 12.4. So when you consider the rising cost environment that we're in and the effect upon our citizens and our employees, we thought it would be a good time to suggest a COLA. When Mr. Greenway and Mr. Williams and I started discussing the current year proposed or possible surplus, we thought, what if, in its more immediate impact, rather than waiting until July 1st with a new fiscal year to implement that COLA, which in a fiscal year's time frame would cost about $3 million for the general fund, we thought, what if we ask council for permission to do it now, since we know we're having a surplus and we are experiencing the rising cost environment now. So you will see in your agenda packet a list of proposed items or initiatives that we would ask that you reallocate part of the budget from in order to fund these things. And the COLA is one of them. If we were to implement that in March, it would cost approximately $850,000. In line with that, there are a few other things that have come up this year that we couldn't have foreseen, we didn't know about, that are a good use of this surplus. The first of those is the MC Riley Pool, which we've recently told you about is in serious need of improvement. And I can think of no better way personally to spend this surplus on giving back to our, not giving back necessarily, but just giving a way for the community and the children and the families to enjoy that pool again. So this is one of a necessity item, not a fun, frilly thing to do. This is just something we have to do. Our initial placeholder and cost estimate there, at least to get the roof taken care of, is about $1 million, so that we can then prepare that facility for use during the summertime. Mr. Atkinson, of course, can elaborate on the time frame if you guys so desire, but my understanding is that the pool will need to be temporarily closed, the roof will be removed, and then the structure will be able to be reopened during the summer. So that's another item. We have $1 million in there as a placeholder. Something that you are already aware of, and it's going to third reading at the next council meeting, is the ARPA payout. In looking at the ARPA provisions, some of those positions in the county we thought might be a bit of a stretch to cover with the ARPA funds itself. And in order to keep things equitable across the board, we already let you guys know that a portion of that would have to come out of the general fund. This $1.7 million is probably a bit high, but we'd rather come to you and have more than we need. That would be for wages and all the associated fringe. The third item, or rather fourth on this list, which we also let you guys know about a week or two ago, is that there's about $1 million or so more needed to finish off Arthur Horn. I have $900,000 in there. It may be a little more, maybe a little less, but that would be a very good use of this money in its immediate future. The second to bottom item is a really urgent need by our EMS department. As you guys know, with the increasing census numbers, we have not only increasing population, but an increasing aging population. And with that comes more calls for emergency care. Our ambulances are running out faster or wearing out faster than they normally would. And due to the supply chain shortages that we have seen and the lead time for vehicles, and especially specialty vehicles like an ambulance, it's getting longer and longer from the time that you order till the time that it arrives. Right now, we're about a 10-month lead time. So if we were to order one today in March, we may not see that vehicle until January or February of next year. And again, rather than waiting until July 1st, as we normally would in a new fiscal year to place this order, we would like permission to begin ordering those now, because if we wait until July, that lead time may stretch beyond a year. So that is out of necessity. In addition, there are some QRVs that need replacing. Those are quick response vehicles, and a great need for EMS equipment for training, mannequins, Lucas devices, stretchers, the whole gamut. So we've put a placeholder in there of about $1.9 million for that. And then last but certainly not least, our detention center. Many of you know that building is in great need of repair. This allotment in here would cover things from security, enhanced security in the building, as well as things that would really improve the quality of the working life for our employees that work so tirelessly there. Unlike many of us who are able to leave during our lunch break during the day, go out and have lunch with a friend or catch up at a nice cafe, our employees are on site all day. We would like to do some things that help make their working environment a better place to be. So we have around $1 million in there for that. The total of all those things is $7.4 million. Now, of course, that is a lot of money. It is within the projection that Mr. Hayes just told you about, between $8 and $11 million. We feel very confident that this is a good use of those funds. One other thing, you might be wondering, well, Whitney, A year or two ago, when you first came on board, you recommended that we use our general fund surplus to pay down debt. Why are you not making that recommendation this time? Well, the good news for you today is that we will still be able to do that. There are a few issuances that are callable next year. One of those is in March of 2023. There are two others in May of 2023. So those amounts on the issuances range from 4.85 million to 18.7 million. We certainly would not have enough to defease all of them, but I think that we can completely defease the Series 2013 that was actually a combination of a bond anticipation note and a refunding for a 2012 issuance. That one is 4.8 million. We should be able to completely defease that. And of course, there's interest savings on the back end for the taxpayer that will actually be made from the debt service fund itself as opposed to the general fund, which is why we have not made that recommendation to you today. I know I've given you a lot of information. I attempted to show you the need for some of those items. I am happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, any questions? And then obviously we have 6 items and they're all fairly expensive items. When you look at $7.5 million of our operating budget, that's 4%. So it is a large amount. So if we sat here and took 10 minutes in each one, that'd be an hour, which is something that we don't have planned on doing. But I'll be happy to take some questions if anyone has any questions right now. This would actually, if we decide to go ahead and approve this and send this to council, it would be there for 3 readings for us to get more information. I mean, and just because I'm speaking right now, the first question I have is, okay, did we just find out that we're $900,000 over on the Forum building? And why is that a surprise to me that we haven't heard about before? But we don't have to talk about that now. I'm just kind of giving you some thoughts on my side as I look at this list. But let's open it up for the rest of council. Does anyone else have any questions?
Councilmember Llewellyn does. I don't know if you can see him.
All right, Brian, go ahead, and then Joe, go next.
Thanks. Whitney, I appreciate you looking into this for us, but one of the things I'm concerned about, I really have 2 questions. The first is, what is the bottom line of our fund balance right now as of the end of the fiscal year? What was the projection that we're going to have, and does that meet our goal?
We are well above the goal of our 25%, absolutely. And we were there, a year ago. Where we are exactly today with, the end of fiscal 21 to where we are with 2022, I do not have that information. I'm quite happy to work with Hayes and get that to you, but I don't have it right off the top of my head.
Sure. We had long estimated or hoped to have 25%. And that was the goal that we had been working at for years. But many of us on county council who have been around the horn a couple of times understood that really 30 to 35% would have been a little more comfortable for us. It would have made us feel a lot more comfortable when hurricane season comes running around, that we can weather any storm that comes our way, or perhaps multiple storms. And so although, I'm interested in spending some of this windfall, I think that we ought to seriously consider making sure that our fund balance is added to in a healthy kind of manner. The second thing I want to point out is not only is our general fund revenue receiving extra receipts because of extra revenue because of this trend towards point of sale reappraisal, more point of sale reappraisals and equals increased revenue. But every one of our funds has the same effect. Our debt service gets extra receipts because of that, and the school gets more because of that as well. And so I just want to make sure that everybody keeps that in mind, that it has a ripple effect down the line of all receipts will be up. It also has an impact on our reappraisal process in December. And that is, normally we anticipate quite a huge rollback because of the fact that the majority of properties are only reappraised once every 5 years. Well, when we have lots of point of sale reappraisals that happen, that has a tendency to diminish the amount of the huge influx of the reappraisal process that we would normally get. so we don't have to roll back quite as far as we normally would. I want to make sure that staff is fully aware of that, and I'm sure Ebony has her thumb right on that button. But I want to make sure that all of us on council understand that it's has a really good effect for us, quite frankly. And keep this up. Thank you. And get back to me on the fund balance.
I certainly will.
Thank you, Brian. Joe, go ahead.
Yes, I want to commend the administration for taking a look at, where we are and what we can do with this money. Over the course of the last couple of years, we did two specific things. We budgeted very conservatively, both on the revenue side and our expenditure side. Circumstance allowed us to increase our revenues in unanticipated areas. Our register of deeds for 2 years in a row significantly increased. As Hayes pointed out, and you pointed out, we could not spend some of the money we wanted to spend anyway because the materials aren't available. So that's why things get rolled over. So the things that you are proposing here are an excellent example of how to spend the money properly and keep us in a position where we can be competitive. So I commend administration, and I would certainly like to have this committee move it to county council for the appropriate hearings.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. Thank
Sound
you.
good.
This is great. Particularly the pool. I'm excited that there's some money to do that. I had a question about the cost of living adjustment. You might have said the percent, but I didn't catch it. And will it apply to elected officials, employees too?
Yes, ma'am, it would apply to elected officials, and we're proposing 3%.
So if an employee works for the treasurer, they would get the cost of living too. And what's the percent? I'm sorry. 3. Okay, thank you.
Good. Oh, yeah, go ahead, York.
Have there been any consideration to give back to the people who've actually paying the bill?
Do you mean roll back the millage rate for the next tax year? We can't do it in the current year. Everybody's already paid their taxes. We'll look at that. Yes, sir. We're in the middle of the budget season now. We actually will be receiving reports from both Ms. Ebony's office and Mr. Beckert's office by the end of the month that will help us start working toward the value of a mill for next year, and then we'll be able to firm up those projections.
Okay. And Mrs. Howell asked a question about elected official. A request came in from the public defender's office. So will they be affected by the COLA as well?
Yes, sir. They would be eligible as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Yep, Mr. Rotten, go ahead.
A couple things. I may have lost track of this, but fairly recently, we got the final estimate on last fiscal year. And did we allocate a use of that, or did that just go into reserves and now that allows us to do this?
There were a few things that you guys have authorized to be paid from the previous year's surplus.
Okay.
One of those would have been the acquisition of the Dowling lots.
Okay.
The other, I believe, was about $1.2 million for Robert Graves Road.
Okay, so
St.
that's
Robert
where
Graves
that,
Road is
okay, that takes care of that. Okay, thank
Yes,
you. I should have remembered that. To Brian's point about the reserves, one of the things we put in place a couple of years ago was a financial policy that said we'd also take a look at what it looks like September, October, because what we have, even though we have a large reserve at the end of June, we're depleting that as we approach the hurricane season. The hurricane season is the one place. So I think when you're looking at that, it might be useful to give us an update on that. To me, that's really what the reserve is all about.
Sure.
For our locality. The last comment I would make is, by the way, it's a good list. I have no problem with the list. There's two things that we've been talking about a little bit that need to fit in at some point in time, and I put those in the category of investments. One is the Economic Development Corporation from time to time has suggested that it would be good to invest some money in industrial parks and things like that. So I don't think we do that in this particular one, but I do think that's a useful thing, because I think that's where we take a small amount of money and we leverage future businesses coming here. The other is our roads. And I think, as Jared has pointed out, one of the things that I think we woke up to was the fact that even though there's a large amount of federal money that's flowing now and state money, we were not in the pipeline to really qualify for that, because we weren't doing the things that we probably should have been doing a couple years ago. And so I think we're going to miss out on a goodly portion of that, which then begs the question, what are the kinds of things that we should be spending money on for roads to make sure we're in the federal and state pipelines so that we get those funds in the future. The good one is, I think we're in the pipeline for 170 and those activities, so I think we'll qualify there. But I do think we ought to be looking at whether there's some other places where a small investment might yield a gigantic return just because we could participate. But good list, no problem with it.
Anyone else? I can't see everybody online. So if anyone has questions, Mr. Richland, should they come to you that you'd be able to answer if they have questions off the list we've got here?
Myself or Mr. Williams?
Okay. All right, so at this time, there's no more discussion. Would like a motion, if we could, to move this to council for first reading. And Mr. Passman, is there a?
Yes, I will make that motion.
All right, thank you. So we have the approved motion. Is there any discussion for anyone else?
I'll second.
All right, well, I nodded, but I didn't acknowledge, so good, thank you, Steve. All right, if there's no discussion, we will then approve this without objection. Are there any objections? All right, we'll move this on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richland, thank you, Mr. Hayes. I guess you're staying there for a reason, Mr. Hayes?
I believe I have the next one here, sir.
Well, let's move on then to, what number is that? That is
Number 10.
number 10, recommended approval of a resolution for the Hilton Head Island Airport Terminal Financing Plan. Floor is yours.
I thought it was more of a discussion than a resolution. So we, you gonna back me up? John and I have become best friends since about May of last year, trying to get this thing together.
And I think you're right. I think we don't, I mean, if I'm looking at this, this is just a discussion.
It's
There's
just,
no action.
it's just a discussion, no action.
From
It's
us.
kind of to tell y'all where we are and where we see it going. A lot of things are gray and hazy. We're not really sure, but I'm going to tell you kind of where we are, how we can proceed and keep this project moving forward. There's a hand, and I don't know what page it's on.
You can keep going.
But there's a handout, and the schedule kind of lays out kind of how the project's going to progress. Right now, we're in the request for proposal stage. We have plans where we want to get bids put out. We're looking at doing that May timeframe.
Mid-May,
Early to mid-May with a 30-day turnaround, so we should have it by then. So that's in 2002, and then the award process will be 60 days. So you're looking to early fall. It's going to take some time to get them geared up and ready to come down. 3-4 months. I mean, they may not begin construction until December of 22, early 23. And then you have 2.5 years of construction. So it's not like we need everything right now. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you our cash needs. And since we're going out in a bid, we don't actually have the numbers quite yet, but we're going to throw out an estimate of around 52 to 55 million. I'm going to keep it at 55 because it kind of works better. And in the middle part of it, I have years and what we estimate we'll need. I mean, these are all estimates, and don't hold me to it. They might be more in one year and less in another, but you know, and the price may be less, but this is just kind of our trend all the way through 2025. So, and this all is leading up to this very fancy bar graph in the back, which is on the handout too. But the financing that we know we have right now this is bird in the hand. We have one for $10 million right now from the FAA for this construction. They fund 90%. We have to do the other 10%. There's a second possible grant for $10 million that John's in the process of applying for. One of the constraints of that is that we need to have the bids in hand by July 10th. That's the mandate. If we don't have it in by July 10th, that $10 million ship may have sailed. But if we can get the bids in, which is what Talbot, Wright, and Ellington have told us that they can do in 30 days turnaround, then we'll know how much it's going to be, and we're going to have $20 million moving forward. So those are 99% certain. John has just, he's making Steve Donaldson envious back there. He's writing more grants than he knows what to do with. There's another FAA grant for the BIL, and John's asked for $30 million there. But that's not for sure yet. We don't know what it could be anything. There are any number of numerous more federal grants that are coming out. We're looking at the state. There's other local processes. We're not really sure where we're going to be. But if you look at this chart and you start at the orange line is our projected spending. And obviously you see it starts small and goes big at the end, and it's over all the years. But you see that blue line, we're starting at 10 million. We're good. We got that. We're anticipating $20 million, which takes us up there. But if you use that $20 million line and you intersected it with the 2023, you're looking at mid-year 23, 24. If we get those other grants, which the BIL grant we should know by June, the other 10 million grant we should know earlier, maybe around June, earlier than June?
Probably July.
July? Okay, we'll say July. We're going to have a really good idea about how much money that we're going to have coming in for this, instead of asking the magic 8 ball whether we're going to have the financing for it. But we're getting there. But if we get what we have projected right now, it's looking like we're not going to need, if we need to go a bond route, until late 24, early 25. So that's kind of where we are right now. There have been so many questions about the airport and so many questions about the financing. We just want to keep y'all in the loop of where it was going and what we're thinking. We're going to let y'all know as things change. This is a very fluid environment. This is taking me way outside of my comfort zone, because it's things that we're probably going to get and they're coming down the pipe. But
Serve as Hayes' calming mechanism.
yeah, I swing high and to the right and he brings me down a little bit.
Keep it relaxed.
But we're looking, ideally, Beaufort County might not have to pay for the airport. It might be paid for with grants. That's what we're working for. We want to let y'all know that. Any questions or discussions?
Mr. Tressman.
The infrastructure bill that is being written now of exactly the money that's coming and how you're going to spend that, we will be able to tap into that as well.
I assume that is different than is that different than the BIL? Or are you speaking about
What's the BIL?
The BIL is the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law.
Maybe that's what I'm talking about.
That is being written as we speak, but the first part of that came out, the first two parts really, we'll talk about in public facilities as well, because we're going to apply for those monies. But there's one that's almost like the normal FAA grants that'll be issued to each airport based on a funding formula. But then this is a separate one for terminals, and it's the ATP, or the Airport Terminal Program.
Okay.
And that is for our size airport. For the next 5 years, there'll be about $97 million available for terminal construction and some tower work as well. But the interesting thing about 2022 is that the money needs to get allocated quickly. It needs to be appropriated quickly to the sponsors of the airports, which would be Beaufort County. So what the FAA did was made a very short form application, and they really tightened up the guidelines or the criteria on the projects. Now, without saying that design projects will not be looked at, the FAA has kind of said they won't be looked at because so much credit will be given towards projects that are basically shovel ready, which is where we sit. So we ring a lot of the bells because we will be improving ADA access, we'll be improving the energy efficiency, be able to serve communities that were traditionally underserved. There's a lot of things we'll be doing with this project that meets the objectives of the specifics of the 2022 funding. So we think we're in a pretty good position for that. That grant is now in, has been submitted. And they'll, like Hayes mentioned, they're going to turn that decision around very quickly. So we'll know in the month of June whether or not we'll have some of that grant money or all that grant money.
Great, thank you. Okay, answered my question.
A quick question. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead, York.
I'll go
Go
after
ahead, go ahead.
Stu, because it's your airport, man. Go.
A couple things. I think you've captured where we are. It seems to me we just got 2 million of ARPA funds that are not listed here, that should be here unless I'm missing something. And secondly, there should be $1 million from the South Carolina Aeronautics that I don't see here. So it seems to me you may have another 3 million to put in your pot as you go forward. I guess this is kind of a question for John, I guess, but I envisioned that second 20 million from the FAA was a done deal unless we didn't meet the bids in time. Is that more or less correct?
It's a second 10 million. We'd love
Yeah.
to
No, I know.
that to 20, but to
Yeah.
complete the 20, yes, you're correct.
Yeah, but that's pretty much promised, as I
We
understood.
just need to stay on the path we're on.
Okay,
and
now-
we're fine.
It makes me slightly nervous if we're going to take 60 days to go to bid and the bids are going to come back and it's a matter of days before we have to have those back in order to make sure we don't lose the 20 million. So it really begs the question, could we go earlier on the bid, which then might attract more people to bid, which then might give us a lower price? So
Sure, totally fair question. And what we're looking at there on the bids is the professionals are telling us they bid terminals all the time, and 30 days is a gracious plenty for the contractors. And in order to try to maybe back up the effective bid date, we're shooting still for the middle of May. We might be able to bring that back a little bit. But we're also going to coordinate early with some pre-bid
Sure.
meetings to try to get the contractors up to date. Specifically, like Hayes mentioned, if they're not local, bring them in, or at least get them educated on what local requirements are for business licenses, any permits they may need as a business, so they can line that up ahead of time and not have that detract from their bid package preparation. And then with regard to the funding, the state aeronautics changed the funding formula for commercial airports because for the first time ever, they now fund all of the commercial airports in the state. Currently, it's at the amount of $250,000 a year. So it's the old 5%, which you're used to,
Yeah.
no longer exists. It's $250 a year, basically used to be used as entitlement funds. But this Wednesday, Aeronautics goes in front of Senate Finance at the State House again, and they'll be talking about next year's budget, which includes a large non-recurring request as well. So some of that funding would be coming to Hilton Head Island as well. So you're right. There are more funding opportunities out there that we don't completely know what it looks like, but they're all to the positive.
Now, lastly, we would normally at this stage, the next time it comes back to us at council would be when we were getting ready to let the bid. But is administration or is anybody looking for us to do a resolution ahead of time that says, yeah, we're prepared to step out and go?
Yes. You want the resolution? Yes. We'll have it ready for council meeting.
Okay.
If they're okay with the plan today, we'll have it ready for council. We're going to officially act on the council.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
The reason we're doing this is because
the reason I would like for you all to approve a resolution is I have to start moving some things off my plate. And this airport terminal expansion has taken up a lot of staff time and eaten up a lot of staff resources. So I want to get this resolution approved so that everybody understands the plan. Council has a chance to weigh in on the plan. They can approve the plan, and then that'll keep us on track as we move forward instead of us having to talk about the plan every couple of weeks. So we're going to do the plan. We're going to stick to the plan. That's the plan we're going to follow unless something significantly changes.
Like it.
I did one.
Yeah. Hayes, you or John, either one, since this is an enterprise fund budget, and from what you're projecting, there's a shortfall of about $15 million. You're hoping for grants, and I'm with you on that. But if for whatever reason there's no grant received, et cetera, for whatever reason, is the airport able to pay the bond back of that $15 million on their revenue on their own?
Councilman, that's a great question. So as part of our consultants that we have, Tom Wright and Ellington, TBE for short, part of that is we have somebody that they've retained, Newton Associates, and they're going to be going out and holding negotiations with the airports for higher fees. And based on that and the passenger facility charges, that's a possible revenue bond that we would be able to issue. Just right now, I mean, we're giving you everything that we know right at this moment, but that is an option down the road.
Okay,
For sure. Great question.
thank you.
Well, the other piece I think, York, that adds to that, if you look at the financials that you presented earlier, the run rate on the free cash was about $1.25 million, and that would actually cover the debt service on a $17 million bond, which is bigger than your delta. So I think you've got the ability to service the debt on the difference.
And we hope for the bond. We hope not to issue. We're hoping to get.
I'm with you.
We're hoping to get as much as we can. So, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we recommend a resolution to be moved to County Council regarding the airport terminal financing plan.
We've got a motion for a resolution and seconded by Mr. Rodman. Any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, without objection, we'll go ahead and make that resolution. Is there any objection? I do not see any objection, so resolution has been passed. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, let's then move on. Next on our agenda, number 11, recommended approval to submit a grant application for the drug-free community support. That's the right one?
Yes,
Looked at me like I was crazy on this. Funding of $125,000 will be obtained annually for 5 years and assist prevention department with offsetting expenditures and increased programming. So go ahead if you want to tell us about that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee. This item is the Alcohol and Drug seeking approval to apply for a drug-free community support program grant, which is a 5-year grant at $125,000. I have asked Steve to join in case committee has any questions, or he can explain the grant in detail, what it will do for his department and the community.
Mr. Dawson, welcome. We always like to have you here. You always seem to come and bring gifts.
It's always nice to attend, and I'll be here again very soon with another proposal. Anyway, I also invited Katie Godowns to come because as a department, we've been very busy writing grants for the last couple of years. And Katie also went through grant writing training, and she's actually taken the lead on this. So I feel less than prepared to answer questions that she might be able to, because she's written the action plan, she's been doing the research. She's also pulled a coalition together, which had to start meeting 6 months before you submit the application. So the application just dropped, and our due date to submit is April 11th, and Katie has been busy with developing this coalition for north of the Broad River. South of the Broad River already has a drug-free community coalition. They've been active for close to 5 years. Some of you may know it by the acronym of LACI. And so what our proposal is that we develop, and by the way, this makes no difference that they're trying to get funding for years 6 through 10. For us to get 1 through 5, it's considered no competition. We've looked at this as an opportunity for the prevention department to expand their coalition reach. We actually don't function as the lead on any coalition. We're typically involved in the coalition. So we would be the lead on this one. We would involve lots of our social service friends, families, students, and some of the ideas for this coalition would be to promote awareness, education, and youth empowerment through by supporting youth-led awareness campaigns in the schools, forming a youth coalition with representatives from the schools, designing youth-inspired campaigns around the substances. We actually have to pick two substances. The literature indicates that the substances that we should look at are alcohol and cannabis. Katie really wanted to put opiates in there, but we have so many other opiate initiatives, we're just going to stick to what the research tells us to do. Also to take a look at the idea of creating a youth-inspired commercial or morning show, which I find very interesting to see what this youth coalition might come up with, and to also increase health fair activities. $125,000 is not a lot of money, but it'll be very helpful to offset some of our expenditures because we do some of these things already. They're a very creative department, and it will help offset some of our expenditures and also give us a little bit of money with the coordination for a part-time coordinator to help Katie with doing all the financial deliverables, the federal deliverables, which when you get federal money, there's lots of deliverables. So that's what we're asking, if we can apply for this federal grant. And if you have any specific questions, I've got Katie in tow to help. Yes, sir. Or yes.
Ms. Howard, go ahead.
Is there specific grade levels you're going to target, or is it all grades?
So for the DFC purposes, the ages are from 12 to 18 years old, so middle and high school.
What agency, what department specifically making the grant? What department that the federal government is specifically
It's the
making?
Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Department of Health and Human Services.
Will the local coalitions be getting any of that money, or does it all come to the county for you to use to offset expenses?
In our grant, we would like for it to come to the county, I believe, and then we would, then part of the grant is also to have an in-kind. So we have to match the budget every year in-kind, $125,000. And the way we would do that is by having the different 12 sectors around the table at the coalition, as well as partner with others in the community. Time, the youth time, everyone's time around the table equates to in-kind. But our goal would be to use the county as the fiscal agent. And then I believe we would request the money down. I'm not sure how that works.
Where does your grant go, to ONDCP? Is that where, are they the deciding people? Are they the major contributors to this?
ONDCP, yes, sir.
That's where it goes. Okay, great, thanks.
And there's no match. I never come in front of you with a grant asking for a match. So if anybody has that question, I just wanted to throw that out.
Is there any other questions? I mean, obviously, it sounds crazy that we have to give you permission to apply for a grant, but that's what we're here to do today. So is there a motion to allow?
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
It's been, first motion is Mr. McKellen, and Ms. Howard has made the second. Is there any discussion? All right, I don't see anyone, so if no discussion, we will approve this without objection. Are there any objections? No objection. Thank you for your time. Thank you,
Good
Ms.
luck.
Katie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to number 12. Recommended approval for the Beaufort County Assessor to extend the time for filing for an agricultural use valuation for the tax year 2021.
Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. The reason why I come before you today is because Ms. Jane Tyler Rockwell has presented ag application to our office for the year of 2020. I realize I have in here 2021, but I want to make a correction. It's actually for tax year 2020. Her application was received after the filing deadline of January 15th of 2021 for the year 2020. Based on the way the code is written, if the application is late, it has to come before a governing body to determine whether or not the application can be accepted for the year the taxpayer is requesting. So Mrs. Tyler Rockwell, she has demonstrated in her information and in my conversations with her that she was either unable or unavailable to apply for the exemption, for the agricultural use exemption. Some history on this is that Ms. Rockwell received the property from her mother. Her mother has owned the property since the mid-'70s. At the care for her mother and her mother's death, the property was transferred to her. According to the code, if the property was in her immediate family member's name prior to 1994 and receiving the agriculture exemption, then the property will continue to maintain the agriculture exemption. So if Mrs. Rockwell would have placed her application in, once it was placed in her name, I would have been automatically had to give her the agricultural use exemption. So I come before you today in behalf of her. I would approve it if you allow her application be timely for 2020. I will approve it. The only other step that I have to go forward with this, once I approve it, if you approve it to be accepted and I approve to go for ag use, it has to go before the Refund Committee. The Refund Committee is comprised of myself, the auditor, and treasurer, because now we're in the part of the statute that talks about a refund. But at that point, she'll have my vote of yes to refund her money. The tax bill, to kind of put it in perspective, her tax bill, the refund amount, she's actually paid over $8,500. Her tax bill would be around $20, respectively between 17 and 19 is like $22. So it's a substantial amount for our taxpayer if you would agree to allow her application to be timely for 2020.
I mean, what's the size of the property?
5.98 acres.
Where is it?
It's in Bluffton.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Great. So we have a.
Or third that, or that, whatever.
So Ms. Sanders, obviously you've taken time out of your schedule to come before us because you do feel this is one, and obviously we don't want to be doing this all the time because you then have people standing at your door. So obviously for you to come before us, I think it's substantial enough. So, and you've already had, someone make a motion and a second. So is there any more discussion? Do we have a motion?
I do have a question, if that's all right.
Yep. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Floyd.
Yeah, I certainly want to move this forward because I see that in this particular case, it's really warranted. It's an issue of fairness, and thank you for bringing it to our attention, Ebony. I'm wondering, however, are we able to target an extension for just one property, or must we extend it for everybody who would have attempted to request the agriculture exemption for that time period? In other words, we're here today to extend the time period. Does it affect everybody, or is it just this one piece of property?
Okay.
That's a very good question. That's a question I posed to Sandy Houck at the Department of Revenue years ago, and he said it's on an individual basis. So if an individual...
Well, if Sandy says it, I believe it. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Mr. Robin, go ahead.
Committee approval, 3 readings of council, what's required?
One more time.
Question, what's required for approval? 3 readings or just a committee approval, or?
I'm going to defer that question.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to defer that question to Mr. Taylor. Kurt, are you available?
Yes. It simply requires an approval by the committee and then by council because the statute says the quote governing body makes the approval.
Okay.
And I believe it's not a change to the ordinance, too. I think this is a resolution.
I agree.
So it's one reading.
Yes.
One and done.
Correct.
All right, so this is a resolution then that we're send to council for 1 reading. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
That is my motion.
Okay.
Okay.
No more discussion. Is there any objection to the motion that's on the table? With no objection, the resolution has passed. Thank you, Mr. Sanders, for coming before us today.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on now to recommend approval resolution authorizing the county administration to execute necessary documents. Make sure I got the right one here.
13, right?
13, I'm sorry. Recommended approval of resolution authorizing the county administrator to execute any and all necessary documents for the acceptance of properties encumbered the road right-of-way for Witzel Road. And,
That's not 13, is it? No. What are you reading, Mark?
oh, you know what? I picked up, sorry.
13.
That's the public facilities. All right, number 13, the letter didn't make sense to me. Recommend approval of a resolution authorizing the Parks and Recreation Department to apply for a $300,000 grant from the South Carolina Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. That's the right one, so go ahead.
That is the right one, yes, sir. So we are looking for a PARD grant in the amount of $300,000 to help us pay for pickleball courts at our Burton Wells complex, which is part of the master plan for Burton Wells.
All right, good. Any questions?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Passman's made the motion.
I'll
And
second.
Mr. Callen has to second it. Any discussion?
Question real quick, if I might.
Yes, Mr. Hervershaw, go ahead.
Thank you. Just out of pure curiosity, are we tracking usage data around pickleball countywide?
So not in a specific sense, we don't have somebody out there counting it, but pickleball is extremely popular, and we hear from the pickleball folks a lot that they don't have enough space and that they've already outgrown the 6 courts that we've given them, so yes.
Yeah, got it. It's incredible, the popularity. I was just curious if we had any good hard data, but totally get it. Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, I think the amount would be, it's full, because every time I go by, there's someone using the facilities that are in Bluffton, new in there. So absolutely good question. All right, so we have a motion on the table.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you got a motion?
Yeah.
In a second.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna vote against this motion, and I'm gonna vote against it because somehow pickleball has gotten a lot of funding here, and there are a lot of recreation facilities that have been asking for help and assistance for funding, and pickleball just seems to be getting everything right now. So I'm just gonna vote against this motion because of that fact, because I have recreation facility needs as well in my community that is not being addressed at this time, so just gonna vote against it.
You realize it is just to apply for a grant, correct?
I understand that too.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah. There should be some grants elsewhere.
Anybody else with any discussion? We have one objection.
Mr. Chairman, the Association of Pickleball Players north of the Broad do keep kind of a record of players, and because they have a sign up, and we could get that information just if anyone's interested from them. So it's not exact numbers, but it gives you an idea how many people north of the Broad are playing pickleball.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Mr. Dawson, go ahead.
Yes, to York's point, I'm going to vote against this as well. North of the Broad, our rural communities are struggling for recreational activities, and we just went through the series of meeting with the consultants to actually give us a blueprint of how we can better serve our rural communities as far as recreational activities are concerned. In addition to that, the Albertan Wells Library have been in discussion for more than 10 years now, and the pickleball folks have just come on the scene within the last 4 or 5 years maybe, and here it is where we're actually funding and have provided spaces for pickleballs at the Burton Wells site, but we're still struggling and fighting for the Burton Wells Library. And I know I had a meeting with the county administrator. He's probably going to address that as he's standing there, but I just want to go on record to lend my support of voting against this as well.
So, yeah, let me address what's happening here, and I think there's I want to provide a little clarification from the staff perspective on what recreation actually is. Many of the things that we've been asked to do and activities we've been asked to carry out at some of the rural centers aren't actually recreation related activities.
They're more of, community center, civic type activities, such as libraries, such as, having people available to assist people with paying taxes, allowing people to come in and conduct, having a place where they could go carry out their own business practices inside of these rural centers. Those are not recreation activities. The pickleball issue that we've been talking about at Burton Wells has been on the master plan for some time, that was approved by this council or a council to set up pickleball courts at Burton Wells. So we're trying to implement the master plan that's already been adopted by the county council for the Burton Wells Master Development Plan. This grant will assist us in doing that. We do spend a lot of time having these discussions, Chuck and I particularly, about what we need to be doing in these rural centers. But those centers aren't really large enough to allow us to do, some of them are not large enough for us to do recreation activities in there. In addition to that, we have made a bid to provide senior programming services through the LCOG. If we're successful in that, that will free up a lot of funding and then give us access to funding that we don't have right now to provide senior programming in some of these centers, which will then also allow us to program after-school care in these programs. One of the big things I think we can do, particularly here close by at Charles Lynn Brown, for our employees, is to develop an after-school care for people in the city of Beaufort at Charles Lynn Brown, but also make it a benefit to our employees to provide them a reduced rate. We have employees right now that are paying about $450 a month or $500 a month to allow their kids to go to the YMCA for after-school programming. And I'm sure that's an adequate amount, and I'm not saying anything about the YMCA charging that amount, but when people are here working hard and they need care for their children, and we have facilities and things that are available to them, then I think we need to provide that benefit as an employer to our employees. So we are working on things. We are very quickly working on things, but it takes time. In addition to the situation with the rural centers, many of these issues have ownership problems as well. We could have done things in rural centers many months ago, but we were told by folks, oh, we own that property, we're going to file suit to the county, and whenever that happens, I can't come to you all and recommend to invest money and set up programming into things where we're going to get a suit. And in another center, I was told, oh, well, we don't want y'all to do that work on the center because we're going to do that work, and we own the property and we own the building, so we're going to do that work. So people can't tell me that 1 month and then turn around a month and a half or 2 months later and say, oh, y'all didn't do what we asked you to do 4 months ago. Well, yeah, we would have, but 2.5 months ago, you told us that not to worry about it, that you all were going to do the work because you own the property and own the facilities, and you were not going to do it. So I'm not trying to be, I'm providing that as information to you all. We are working on things, but we as a staff and as a council have to decide what recreation is going to look like, because many of the things that we're being asked to do at some of these centers are not recreation activities, and there's going to be no way we can provide staffing to put people in these buildings so that if anybody just walks in and says, I want to do my taxes, or I want to do, I want to fax something, or I want to do office work or whatever, that they're there to assist them. So we're working. Yes, sir.
I may be missing something. It seems to me if we win a $300,000 grant, regardless of where it is, it frees up money to use it elsewhere for recreation someplace else in the county. So am I missing something?
No, you're not.
Okay.
So, Mr. Atkinson, the grant, we'd actually have the grant awarded first and then spend the money? Is this something that because again, I see it's in fiscal year 2023 is whenever we'd have to spend the funds. So does the grant come first, or we spend the money first?
So the grant would come first. Clearly, there's a long list of needs in Parks and Rec. I think we all know that. Very similar to what the approach that staff took with the tennis courts, that's what we're trying to do with pickleball courts. We had multiple funding sources, A&H tax money, PARD grants, tennis association grants. We're looking at every single avenue to facilitate that. There are clearly guidelines to different grants, and you have to find the right projects to fit in the right application to be eligible for it. We have A&H tax money that's on the table that we're looking to get for pickleball courts. This would be in concert with that. Just because we ask for $300,000 doesn't mean that we're going to get it from PARD. We may not get anything, but we're trying. So there are a lot of needs, a lot of pots of money, and we're doing the best we can to prioritize.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make it clear. I am not against you getting $300,000. I'm saying go get the money. But I am saying that there are needs elsewhere, and I need you and the staff to focus on those needs for that community. I've been on this council for almost 5 years, and I've been saying the same thing about recreation in my community. That's all I'm saying. Focus also on other areas of the county that are not providing any kind of recreational needs right now. The buildings are closed. Folks are using the facility, but there's no real true recreation. And it may come down to Mr. Greenway looking elsewhere for guidance, because there are recreational concerns that we need to address in all these communities. And all I'm saying is that, come here with a $300,000 for some recreation elsewhere.
Understood.
That's all I'm saying. I don't need a defense. I don't need you to reply to it.
I'm not defensive. I wish I could do all of it. I really want to. But again, there's a very long list of needs.
And I'll say this, that the first time, I still don't know what it is, pickleball about 2 years ago came before this council here asking for pickleball courts. Now, I don't know how long pickleball has been out there, but it came before this council about 2 years ago. And all of a sudden, there's pickleball being done all over the county and stuff. That's all I'm saying.
So I would like to add to the discussion that pickleball is not the only thing we're doing. We've spent a lot of money rehabbing our basketball courts, our basketball courts, in addition to the tennis courts. We have, clearly we're looking at correcting our pool issues, our baseball fields. We've put considerable money there. Burton Wells, we're putting a new bathroom there. That was a carryover budget from last year. Bruce Edgerly, we have a bathroom that was dilapidated. We tore that down. The tennis courts, we're doing that. We have many projects throughout the county that we're working on. There's some in Bluffton. We're trying to accommodate every need as best we can. And I can assure you that I hear you. And I understand what the need is, and that's the direction we're trying to go. And we're working to solve those issues, those problems.
Is there any more discussion? All right, do we need to vote? We'll just go with, all right, since we have two objections, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. I think it was Mr. Passman, you were did you make the motion?
I did not.
Was it Mr. McCollum?
I was a second.
Okay.
I think Mr. Passman did
It
it.
was Mr. Passman.
Oh, it was me who made the motion?
So long ago,
Sorry, I
we
thought it
forgot.
was Mr. McCollum that made the motion.
3 times today, I thought I was
Yeah,
crazy, but.
I was first, so I'm going to say yes.
Yes.
All right, and then let's go with who's here in person. Mr. Rodman?
Yes.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Glover?
No.
All right, and then online, Mr. Hervishon?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
No.
Mr. Flewelling?
Yes.
And I think that's everybody we've got. Did I miss anybody, Sarah? All right, so the chair votes yes. So we had 2 objections. All right, let's move on now to
Executive session.
executive session. We have two items that would like to be brought to us in executive session. And those would be negotiations and to propose contractual arrangements for sale or purchase, and that is property owned by TCL. And the second one, where legal advice relates to matters covered by attorney-client privilege. So again, I'd like to have someone make a motion for us to go into executive session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Go ahead.
And any discussion? If not, without objection, we're going to go into executive session. Hopefully, we'll not be there very long. Are there any matters that are arising out of executive session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we instruct administration to continue discussions with TCL about the potential purchase of properties discussed in executive session as set forth in agenda item number 14.
I'd like to second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion with a second. Is there any additional discussion regarding this motion?
I'd like to weigh in and say that this is a good idea. I think it gives us an opportunity to focus on one of our county priorities, which is affordable housing, in a way that would be meaningful, and I would like to say that I'm going to support this wholeheartedly.
Mr. Flewelling, I think I saw your hand, and then Mr. Herbershon. You're on mute, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be opposing this motion. I think it places the county in a position of being in direct competition with free enterprise and the taxpayers of Beaufort County. I think it's a waste of resources for the county to be even discussing this. This is property that, quite frankly, could be used to elevate property tax values and increase the tax base for all of Beaufort County citizens so that the tax burden would be spread more equitably around the county. And I think that it's just a waste of our resources to be spending so frivolously.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Herbershon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Flewelling on this. I'm adamantly opposed to this. I don't think this is a business that the county should be in, nor do I think it's something that we can necessarily do well. I think it's a waste of resources as well. And then additionally, I think it has potential to erode the confidence in the rural and critical program in the county. I can't support this.
Mr. Robin?
Yeah, I'm going to vote against it. As I look at it, these are 5 properties that are adjacent to TCL in Beaufort that are down in the general area of Beaufort Memorial. The highest and best use would have been for TCL, but they said they don't want them. The second highest and best use would be for Beaufort Memorial, and they've indicated an interest, so they ought to buy them if they want them. And the third would be to let the public market do its own thing, and I think the fourth and last and the worst use would be for the county to wade into this. So I'm going to vote against it.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Howard,
I've been on council almost 8 years. We've been saying the private market's going to help us with this. It's not really helping yet, and it's only getting worse. And TCL is offering us an opportunity to do something. The county could actually have this property, tear the buildings down, and then lease the property back to private industry, which would pay taxes. Private housing could be developed on it with covenants. There's all kinds of variables that could be done with this. So I disagree with those who say it's going to take it off the tax rolls. That's not necessarily what has to happen. And there's creative ways that this can be done. And we are, with the help of the county and the other municipalities, we're trying to address the problem of workforce housing. And I think this is a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Am I missing anybody?
Mr. Chairman, just quickly, there are times when the government needs to step in and do the right thing. And affordable housing is what we've been talking about, workforce housing we've been talking about. And if that's a goal and an initiative of ours, we need to put we need to do something about it as a council. So I'm going to support this motion.
All right, and we'll vote, but I'll have my discussion on this is at first glance, I have some reservations. However, I'd like to see us move forward with discussions and to see what the upside would be, to see what could be done in some type of way, so that way we can get that information and have staff come back to us with something would be my recommendation if it does pass. So let's go ahead at this time and put it up. We're going to do a roll call vote. Mr. Passman?
Yes.
Mr. McCallum?
Yes.
All right, let's go with who's here on council. Mr. Robin?
No.
Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Glover?
Yes.
All right, and then online, I see Mr. Herbershon first.
No.
Mr. Dawson?
Yes.
Mr. Flewelling?
No.
And the chair votes yes. So we have three no's, I'm sorry, three objections.
6 yes.
6 yes, 3 objections. All right, so the motion passes, and we would then, any other items that need to come before this committee?
Well, I have something, Mr. Chairman, if you have like 10 seconds.
Yep.
I'm
Yes,
hoping that at the next meeting, or maybe even in between meetings, maybe the next county council meeting, we can get an update from the administrator on the process regarding funding for the Black Chamber that we're currently withholding, and where we are in that process and what needs to be done in order to make sure that the Black Chamber gets the funding we've already promised it.
Very well stated, Mr. Flowing, and we've already gotten a thumbs up from staff that they would work on that for us. So thank you for that input.
For the next meeting, for the county council meeting?
Ready for Monday. They said they will have it ready for Monday, so that would be the next council meeting.
Appreciate that. Thanks. And
Great.
Joe, thank you for putting it on the agenda. Thank you.
All right, any other, all right, this meeting is adjourned.
So we need 5 minutes, sir? Okay, we'll start public facility.